Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I am Justin Stacy,
I'm Nate Thomas.
I'm Josh Matney.
and we're back again. This time to talk about South Park. Now, I realized after rewatching the first episode that I called it South Park Pandemic Special. That's not what this was, and I hope that no one messed up and watched Pandemic Special because that was an episode from season 24. But what we watched, what I intended for us to watch, was South Park Post COVID Special on Paramount Plus, and I think we all watched that. It's a
Yeah.
two-part special. I think we all watched that, so you got the hint. But there was an actual episode in season 24 called Pandemic Special.
Yeah, I figured you meant the COVID specials because like the pandemic special, honestly, I kind of forgot what it was about, but COVID specials is kind of like the highlight of that season.
Yeah. I mean these are standalone movie length shows that basically wrap up the COVID storyline that they've been doing. They did in season 24,
Mm-hmm.
and this was the wrap up. And I forgot to tell Nate that you may have needed to have watched the pandemic special to get all the context, but given the
Yeah, I
fact,
really feel like I missed out.
right, I'm sure you did. I think
Hope
you got the gist.
No, I get it.
Hope
They're
you
all
watched,
terrible people, and they all deserve to get COVID. I got it.
That's right. But anyway, sit back, relax, put your feet up as we open a bottle of pop culture.
We're gonna talk about some really cool stuff. With Josh, Nate, and I, we're gonna blow this thing up. We're gonna talk about the movies you love. And if you don't, well, that is just tough. But we're gonna talk about shows that are awesome. You'll say, whoa, when we talking about Blossom.
Blossom.
This will be your one and only stop for everything nerdy in a bottle of pop culture.
All right. So, early impressions that I'm getting from Mr. Nate Thomas is that you didn't like this and you don't like South Park. And I have based our entire podcast around it. we have a conflict of interest here. Like, what's going on?
I just don't care for South Park. I don't care for raunchy humor for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
My general take on South Park is that Parker and Stone are about half as funny and clever as they think they are. Now that's just my general take on it, and you're entitled to your thoughts as well. And I just don't enjoy it. I generally don't care for intentionally offending people just for the sake of intentionally offending people. And that's my take on South Park. It's my take on a lot of media.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people deserve to be offended. Don't get me wrong. And we're all those people some of the time. But South Park's just not doing it for me. But I watched the pandemic special, or whichever we were supposed to watch. And there were moments that I thought were funny. And there were moments that my phone had much more of my attention. I'll be honest with you.
All right. I guess to give this some context before we start doing the deep dive into both part one and part two. So the first one, let's see. This is a summary from the Internet Movie Database, and it's from post-COVID. If Stan, Kyle, and Cartman could just work together, they could go back in time to make sure COVID never happened and save Kenny's life. Traveling back to the past seems to be an easier answer until they meet Vic Chaos. Yeah. I think that's actually the second part. Yeah, I had the wrong one open, I think. Yeah. So the first one was what happened to the children who lived through the pandemic. Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny survived, but will never be the same post-COVID. So that was actually the first part synopsis. So yeah, I took a ton of notes. I rewatched both episodes last night. But I mean, Josh, did you want to bring up some of your points first?
Yeah, the first I want to bring up is like the future is awful.
The future, yeah,
Yeah, it is awful. Because
it is awful.
And another point is everybody is cynical and apathetic. Like,
So that's a very good point, and I think it reads into Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
mhm,
They are very cynical.
yeah,
Like you can see it. And South Park has been that way forever. Like there is no optimism in South Park.
Oh,
And that's just a typical theme that everything is the worst case scenario. Nobody has best of intentions.
mhm. I mean, there's a couple times they've actually like done a lot of heartfelt episodes. Like, I do feel like a lot of the later episodes, even though they're raunchy, they tend to have a lot more heart in them. Especially the episodes where like the boys were splitting up from like breaking up their friendship a little bit, and Stan kind of
Mhm.
went on his own. And I think this one had it too, at least a little bit. But yeah, the future sucks, and everybody just is jerks.
The future absolutely sucks. I love though some of the things that happens in the future, like
Yeah.
the singing doorbell.
Like,
I-
like
that was pretty fun.
I found that hilarious. Someone's at the door and I am singing because in the future you have singing doorbells for some reason.
like all technology and everybody has to acknowledge that it's the future, not the present for them. It's the
Yeah.
future.
And it's the worst, most annoying things.
And another point for me was like how crazy. I mean, Matt and Trey Songz has always like poked fun at capitalism. This one really showed like how crazy it can get, especially like where you have like merging restaurants and then everything is plus.
Plus and max.
Yeah.
That was.
I thought that was a target on how fat Americans are.
Probably both.
That's what I assumed it was, and in the future we'll all be fatter.
I mean,
Yeah. I'm sure that will be the case. So, what about the Asian ads that was sprinkled out throughout both episodes?
I figured
Yeah.
that was probably like a nod. I mean, I don't know, because like I didn't really catch that one, but I figured it was something to do with China, like how China's market is like kind of
Well,
becoming a superpower or something.
yeah, they did mention that
Oh.
30. Well, I think it's 38 years in the future is what the timetable here is, and I think they did mention that China is the biggest world superpower at that
Yeah.
point. So I bet it is that basically it's just insinuating that China essentially owns America at this point. So you have these Chinese ads sprinkled throughout.
Oh,
So I think
okay.
that's possibly what that was. I found it interesting that the running pun, since South Park has been a thing in the late 90s, is Kenny dies all the time. Like
And-
Kenny's dead. That's just a running joke. And then they make these two episodes based around Kenny dying again.
Well, if it helps, they kind of sort of, I don't know if they retconned it what, but remember like in the superhero episodes, like every time Kenny dies, like everybody forgets about that he died. It was like,
Yes.
so they just don't remember him actually dying. They're just
And
like,
and his mom, when he dies, his mom instantly has another version of Kenny.
yeah, she rebirths him.
And he grows up immediately. So
Yeah.
that's how they explain Kenny dying and coming back. It's just another reincarnation of Kenny.
Yeah.
Oh,
But apparently this time it's for real.
Right,
Like,
because he was an adult, I guess. He don't have that supernatural power. So I guess, Nate, do you have anything thus far, any complaints thus far?
my favorite joke across the two episodes was the Alexa,
Oh, yes.
because
Yes.
I have not a doubt in my head that within 10 years, that's
it's
what
gonna be.
Alexa will be. We will have a person, an actual artificial intelligence. And it was funny, and I thought it was poignant on that one.
the Alexa in the hotel room where
Yeah.
Stan's like, cut the television on, as she walks over and cuts the
Give the
television
remote.
on.
See, I thought that was funny.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, they're relationship was basically like husband and wife. Like it was,
Right.
I mean, it was a bad relationship, but still, you know, Stan was basically a drunk in this.
Yeah.
You know, he was trying to deal with all his family problems, and Alexa was calling him out on it, and then they would argue back and forth, and then all of a sudden she would ask him about like, do you want to know more about such and such, and then he would have to give in just to appease her.
It kind of reflects his parents' relationship towards like those later seasons.
That's true.
Because their parents were like, because I think in a flashback they kind of showed Stan's character like just kind of sitting at the kitchen table eating while the parents are arguing. So it's probably like a, you know, part of that too. Like you kind of become your parents.
Probably. Also, what about the staff of Denny's and then some of the like scientists, medical experts in the show? They had what looked like a diaper around their head.
I didn't get that.
I was trying to figure out.
I thought it was a play on the way I thought it was a play on the way the anti-vaccine, anti-COVID people say that you're wearing a face diaper when you wear a
chin
mask.
diaper.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought that was sort of a permanent chin diaper now. That these people have literally took an actual diaper, and it's because it's what it looked like, and put it around their head and tied it around their chin. So I'm guessing that's what it was. Now, in previous episodes, this is some of the context I was mentioning, Nate, that you wouldn't have got. They had a mask special back last year or year before, and it was, you know, they called it chin diapers the entire time, and it was all about masks and wearing your mask or not wearing your mask, and they called it chin diapers then. But at that point, it was just masks, and they were calling that chin diapers. But I think they took it up a level and have actual diapers.
Another thing I liked about the COVID specials was like they kind of went back at the whole PC thing, like all the jokes, all the humor, like it, you know, of course, it's like, what's the difference between a lesbian and a Christian? Nothing. They're fine people.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah,
that's the joke.
But basically, jokes in comedy in the future is just complimenting people.
Yeah.
Well, sorry.
Go ahead, Nate.
That's a play on today, I thought, because, well, just my theory, comedy is meant to be offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not talking about insulting people. That's different. But comedy is meant to challenge your sensibilities.
Yep.
And people in
like
2022, right, you're exactly right. 2022 people want to get offended. And I'm not saying we can offend people based on race, creed, religion, or sex. But there are times when comedy should check what we think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that's what it was a play of.
And I think it's what made people like George Carlin so good at what he does, because he always kind of like, even though he was very much a liberal, he always poked fun at the PC culture and how much like, I mean, how much is it really going too far, and how much is, you know, comedy is supposed to be offensive, or it's supposed to make you think. If you know, good.
That's more fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that sort of the George Carlin right now is Bill Maher, because he is going heavy against the left, quote unquote, the PC culture. He is going heavy against them right now, and you know that's anti his political beliefs, because he for everything else he is a liberal, completely liberal. But I also think that you can make the argument that to be liberal is to agree with free speech. That is a part of being in a liberal society, that you can you know there may be consequences, but there are forums like comedy that should be risky, that should be edgy, and that should be offensive, and that's okay. But we just live in a time where it's not okay. Like the culture has basically said, or at least a segment of the culture has basically said, not allowed. Yeah. And you know, I think a part of it is that the culture who is saying not allowed are in very powerful positions. You know, a lot of like company owners or people, you know, who have businesses who are basically just stamping out stuff, right? So
and that was actually one of the jokes in the COVID specials, like when they were trying to get the help from like the military, and they're like, "Is everybody safe in there? Is everybody vaccinated?" And it's like, "Well, except for Clyde," and they're like, "Oh well, we gotta respect his beliefs, so sorry."
I love that in the future, in the South Park future, that everybody pretends they put on being, non-offended, to being accepting, to loving each other, to being okay with each other. But then you have scenes where the number one, the police was completely defunded. There is no police there, and then you have a person come up with a gun and shoot someone for groceries, and it's like it's nothing. And then you have the military who is doing the quarantine of South Park, sniping people off like it's hunting,
Right.
as if it's not. There's no human value in this system that's portrayed in the future, and I think
that's the thing that they've also like brought up in a lot of episodes. Really, is like, people give this facade like they care, but in the end, when it comes to them, they're pretty selfish. Like their intentions deep down is selfish.
Yeah. And I think you can make a point, and I think South Park has done this many times over, that companies who want to filter or cancel or whatever word you want to call it, they are only doing it out of greed, out of some kind of economic basis that they believe they need to do that, make this stand. They need to do this because their audience or their customers require them to do it or want them to do it. That's the only reason why they're doing it. It's not like a moral stand that they're really making. They're making a economic decision with these.
Well, companies are in business to make money.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I go to my job. It's a little different because I'm a full-time vocational pastor, but they pay me. I have to have a full-time job. And I'd want to be in the ministry even if it was voluntary. That's not a fair thing. Right. But generally people go to work, they do like what they do, but you go for money.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's not a thing wrong with it. It's easy to criticize a business when they have $1 billion profit, but good for them. No, that sounds like I'm pro-capitalism, and maybe I am.
Well, I mean, you can be like a little pro-capitalism. I think it's just like, it's when it gets out of hand and it starts to become like almost unregulated or out of control.
That's
and people are being exploited. That's where I think the exploitation is where people get to really, they kind of put like, okay, well, let's stop there.
I think the point that South Park drives home a lot is that there's really no morality in economics. And that's where the unregulated capitalism, I think that Josh is talking about, is a problem. Like I see it as a pretty major problem. That unregulated capitalism will lead to suffering, will lead to imbalance in income, income inequality, will lead to things like people not having health care. There is a lot of things I think that should be regulated within the boundaries of capitalism. And, a lot of people are going to call it socialism. I don't care what they call it. I just think that we can't always just trust a market to be on the side or to care about people, because markets are based on money. So
the whole NFT thing was that, like, it was
that was my favorite part.
Yeah,
my favorite parts was all of the crypto and NFT talk, because that is something that I've been interested in for years, and I dabble a little bit in crypto, so I know the language. And it was some of my favorite scenes. I loved when they go to what was it? It was Stan, I believe it was Stan was going to check into a hotel. It was a Super 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, we only accept crypto because for some reason we've decided that we only accept decentralized scams or something like that for funding." That's amazing.
And honestly, like, I still don't know a whole lot about NFTs, but like watching like how they made Butters to be this like crazy
Vic
guy
Chaos.
who just ruined all these people's lives, and it was
that was good.
And like after he escapes, the guy is like on his phone, like trying to invest in crypto.
Yes, I wrote down a quote from Butters, from Vic Chaos, in this. It's my favorite quote of the entire 2 episodes. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. Now I am going to censor myself because I don't curse that much. But here we go.
I can do it
It's
for
the
you.
future. Okay, it's the future. You can't sell food to people. You lure customers in with some good pancakes and some French fries. Then you F them with some NFTs. If you believe in NFTs, and I believe in NFTs, and they believe in NFTs, then we make all kinds of effing money. And I think that probably perfectly explains NFTs. Like, it does seem like somewhat of a Ponzi scheme type thing, to where
Yeah,
it's a digital asset. Like, how can you say that a digital asset is original?
yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a way to do it, but like, it's like you got a copy of the original, and then I guess they can find
Well,
a way to, because
so
like
the
if
way
you notice,
the way
like,
they
kept
do it,
yeah, like they kept talking about those like little animal images, like they kept buying animal images with crypto.
and if you look at NFT markets, because I've honestly, since I've been doing art over the past month, I've been thinking about making some of my art pieces NFTs, looking into how you do it and stuff like that. And the way, but a lot of the marketplace is just these small, like pixelated animals. It seems like a lot of people do that. Dogecoin, the Doge dog, that's an NFT too. But e- essentially, what they do is they whatever photo that you want to mint, you're like you're minting a coin. You want to mint. It gets assigned a digital, like a hash. So there's a code, and then from there on, that code is tied to that image, that one image that you made. It's tied to that, and then anytime, and this is the blockchain concept, the crypto concept, anytime that changes hands, if I sell that to Nate, then it's going to show a transfer from my wallet to his wallet. So this hash is going to move from from one wallet to another wallet. You're storing crypto is stored in digital wallets. That's part of the crypto space. It'll show the transaction. It's a ledger, essentially.
Sure.
So you're going to have this one image, and you can trace it. You can see the transactions. It's a ledger. And that's how crypto works too. You can see when someone sells however many Bitcoin or whatever, you can see that transaction. There's a history there. And now, I don't think that you can necessarily pinpoint whose wallet it is and all that stuff, but there's hash codes for all of these things. I think that's the idea, is it kind of, if there's any way possible to make a digital art piece original, then that's the closest that's gonna be, because ultimately a digital art piece, it's hard. I would say it's near impossible to make original, right? I mean, you've got the original copy yourself, but then if you put it online, anybody can make 10,000 copies of it. You could make 10,000 copies of it. What is the original now, right? But if you have it stamped with a digital hash code, and then that's tracked, at the very least, that's something, Now, does that equate to millions of dollars in value? No, I think that's insane and crazy. But that's what is happening in the NFT space. Is somebody's taking drawing a picture of Mr. Hankey the Christmas poo, and minting it, and then selling it for $1 million, and it's selling. So
I figured you would love the NFT stuff. Like, as I was watching, I was like, "This is Justin right here."
yeah, by far my favorite parts of this, and I love that Vic Chaos was in the insane asylum for this reason alone, because he was so persuasive that people were going broke instantly.
Right.
That's right. And then they gave him that piece of paper, and he used that piece of paper to get out.
He's like, "Why'd you give him a piece of paper?" And it's like, "Vic Chaos," and they're like, "Right? Oh my gosh!"
I love that in the first part, they called him Victor Chaos. Really to throw off fans as to who this is. You know, it's kind of like who's this character going to be? But Victor Chaos is clearly Victor Chaos once you see the spelling.
Yeah.
And so Nate, this is probably something else you wouldn't know since you haven't watched South Park religiously like Josh and I. But Butters, his super villain character when they did the superheroes, and honestly, those are the episodes you probably like since you're big into superheroes. I mean, it's a complete knockoff of Marvel, is what it is.
Sure.
But Butters was a supervillain in those episodes, and he went by the name of Professor Chaos.
Oh, so I would have gotten that.
You would have gotten that exactly. So yeah, it's
I mean,
funny that. Go ahead.
I thought it was a clever way to do it, even not knowing that.
Yep.
I thought it was funny, like he was grounded for like 16 years, and
16
all he did
years.
was like did crypto.
That's also a throwback to the South Park seasons, because in almost every episode, but at least in every season, he's grounded. Like he is always grounded. And it's funny because out of all of the boys, I mean, he's not really part of the 4 main characters, but he is in almost every episode. And of all the boys, I would say he is one of the best in terms of morality and stuff. Butters usually doesn't get in trouble. Cartman gets him in all kinds of trouble, but it's because Cartman's a douche, right?
The thing is, like, Butters is such an innocent, naive character versus like everybody else who's a little like cynical or like manipulative, who manipulates people. But like, and honestly, like when Cartman and him are together, it's like some of my favorite episodes, especially like
absolutely
the buddy system thing they had when they went on a field trip. So they had to hold hands the entire time.
Yes.
And Cartman, he just would not let go.
Did you know that 1 out of every 3 pets become lost at some point in their life?
And it's our job as entertainers to use our platform to help those families who have missing pets.
So we've selected a local family to help out. This family is even offering a small reward for their pet Spike.
Please be an angel and help this family.
If you have any info on Spike, please call 1-555-555-0123. I repeat, that's 1-555-555-0123. Only you can find this missing pet.
Wait, isn't that our number?
Dang it, Josh!
But yeah, like the crypto stuff was funny to me.
I absolutely enjoyed the crypto stuff. Probably my favorite scene is when they are going to the Super 12 motel and there's murder everywhere, like everybody's dead, and the I think it's a fire officer. It was either a police officer or it wasn't a police officer because they don't exist in the future, but I think it was a fireman, was explaining to Stan what happened, and he said you got this guy who comes in and he's giving this presentation on investment opportunities. He said, and then you have this group over here saying hodl, 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 which is HODL, hodl. And what that stands for is hold on for dear life. Hodl. Okay. Hold on for dear life. Yeah. And then you have this other group who is saying to the moon. And of course, anybody in stocks and crypto is always saying, basically, oh, this is going to the moon. If you remember in the commercial, the Super Bowl commercial of crypto.
Oh yeah.
The music was "Fly Me to the Moon."
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah, see, like I would never caught that.
Right, that's the reason why. It's because of the stock market and crypto market language. That's what people use. So there was that, and then they said, I forget what the rest of it was, but he's like, well, this one group starts shooting the other group, and the other group starts shooting that group, and they just all killed each other.
But I got out alive with this picture.
With this picture.
One of my favorites. I was watching a review of this show too, and I think it was Crack or not crack, good grief, wisecrack. And I don't ever keep it like, it's hard because they know a lot more about philosophy than I do. Like they are like majors in philosophy. But anyway, and they do this in like a lot of episodes, and they talk about how like South Park is heavily on individualism. But the problem is like when there's too much individualism, it causes situations like this where everybody is screwed because of one individual doesn't want to contribute to the good of everybody else. And I think this is one of those times where like Matt and Trey Stone was like, okay, we're going like, we love the idea of libertarianism and individualism, but this is one of those situations where, okay, we need to get out, all be one so we can get out together. And I think the end of it was like, let's have a common, ground. And of course it was getting high, but it was like, but like, it's just, and Matt and Trey has also like admitted in their episodes, like when they've kind of like been wrong in the past, like man, bear, pig being real, climate change situation and stuff like that.
They it is good that they will not only change their view on things, but then they will put it in their future episodes that they changed it. So I think they're really good about that stuff. And I like the fact that they do target every group to make fun of them.
Oh yeah.
The fact that they aren't just trying to, they don't have really, I don't think they have an agenda in terms of, we are trying to force our beliefs on you and you're going to believe this way, which I think is a lot of what Seth MacFarlane does, which is the reason why I don't care too much for his stuff anymore. But that's what I like about Trey and Matt Stone and Trey Parker, is that I don't think they have an agenda. I think they're just literally making fun of every group.
Yeah, like the way they explained their process was like they focus more on a story than trying to offend people. The offensive jokes just comes along with creating a story, and like the Christmas special, the critters, the Christmas critter. They said that was like they created out of sheer like, we don't know. Let's see if it works. Screw it. And it wound up being like one of the more acclaimed episodes. But like I don't think they have an agenda as well.
Yeah, I agree. So let's go back to something that you mentioned earlier, Josh, and about Clyde, because Clyde was a big character in both of these, and he represented the anti-vaxxers,
no kidding.
Yeah, big time. And I love that he said that an expert told him one time that, let's see, I wrote down a quote of this.
He would grow titties on his head or something like that.
That's it. He would grow titties on his head. And he said this expert was very knowledgeable. And that just made me laugh. I just laughed out loud when he said that, because
excuse me.
A lot of the things that you've heard people say that, I'm not taking it, going to take it because I've heard X, Y, and Z. It sounds just as ridiculous as what they just, Clyde just said. So I found that very funny.
And they poked, in the lab scene where, Wendy's like, you want to get high off some Coke? He's like, sure, we'll get high off some Coke. And then he finds out it's like the vaccine. He's like, I'm not putting that junk in my
right.
system.
Yeah, it's amazing. He was willing to do Coke, but not COVID vaccine.
But you had people when the vaccination, to this day, they're like, well, I don't know what's in the vaccination. And you want to look at them and say, okay, but last Sunday at our potluck, you had 3 hot dogs.
Or you smoked.
or you smoked a cigarette.
Well, I mean, I take medication every day, and while I believe what they tell me is in it, I don't know.
Right.
I don't get that. Again, I know Josh was getting ready to talk, and I cut him off again. Man, I'm not going to keep doing that, Josh.
Yeah, that's my point. Like, it's kind of hypocritical. It's like, okay, you may do some sort of substance or whatever, or eat something. It's like, I don't care what's in it, I'll eat it anyway. But like something health related, it's like, oh no, I don't trust it. But I trust like processed food or a cigarette or something.
I thought, Nate, being a football fan, that you would appreciate the stab at Aaron Rodgers, the immunized.
I did. I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan, so I'm like, yeah, go ahead, offend him. Who cares?
Now, fun fact: Josh is a Green Bay fan. I don't know if you
Yeah.
would consider yourself an Aaron Rodgers fan because you've been a Green Bay fan for a long time, right?
Yeah,
Since
I was a
Favre.
fan before like Aaron Rodgers was even on
Yeah.
there. I was a
Hey.
fan when
Hey man,
so
the
I'm
next
not
few
a
years for you are going to be great. You guys are going to win all kinds of games until January. And then you're going to have a long off season because you can't win a playoff game.
That's
Now,
right.
I don't have a
That's right.
team, so I can say that.
That's right.
I'm a free agent fan. We'll talk about that another day.
fair enough.
So-
I love you,
something-
buddy. I couldn't resist.
Something I really found hilarious is when they were talking to Clyde about the reasons why he don't want to take it, and he was saying that he heard that it could be cross contaminated with shellfish, and he has a shellfish allergy. And they said, so
I know.
you're saying that you won't take it because of your shellfishness. He's like, exactly.
Yes.
I love that joke.
That was a well-crafted joke.
It really was.
It really was.
And I love how like Jimmy's like, it's fun, like Jimmy's like one of my favorite characters
Uh-huh.
because like his character and Butters has some of the best story arcs throughout the
Yep.
series.
Yep.
And like Jimmy is just like I don't know, I just love his character. Like, so you shellfishness, right?
Yeah.
Like he's like so anti-PC, and like when PC principal will try to like control people's like way of acting or whatever, he's the one like doing all the the crazy jokes and stuff. But yeah, I digress.
I really liked his stuff. So here's a question to Nate. I'm
I
curious.
have
I'm
no
curious.
knowledge of the event in question.
I'm curious how you felt about the character of Scott Malkinson.
You're going to have to remind me which one that is.
Hey,
He was the-
I got diabetes.
He was the priest, the diabetic
Oh.
priest.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that
By
character?
and large, what I have watched of South Park, and this is not fair because I'm not an avid fan. I'm not
Mhm.
a fan at all, although I respect what they do, whatever. By and large, their take on religion itself, I think, is very poor because it targets the very worst extreme.
You're right. It does.
And I don't. I hate to say this. I'm not one of those guys that gets butthurt over everything. Oh, they said this, they said that. I just didn't think it was funny.
Right.
Now,
Mhm.
somebody else may say it's the greatest thing ever. For me, and see, I didn't even remember the character's name.
Right.
I mean, that shows, again, not that I didn't want to like it. It's just, for me, that doesn't have it doesn't mean anything to me.
That is probably a fair point that it's not often in South Park that you're going to get highlights of
Right.
either a religion or a people group because
Right.
they're always just showing the extremes, showing the bad stuff and poking fun at it.
And that's what's fun.
Right. But
I mean, you have to like kind of point those people out because they're the ones that sort of like talking the loudest, unfortunately.
Right. Well, those of us that aren't crazy don't get all the attention.
Yeah.
I
And
have
like
wondered,
they've talked about like, I mean, almost every religion you can think of like on the show, like Scientology, Christian,
Pardon me
Catholicism,
again.
of course,
Oh, absolutely.
Judaism. They're always poking fun at Judaism. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
See, isn't
And-
that personal with those guys?
no, like what's funny is
No.
is it
I
Matt
think they're
Stone, who's
atheists.
actually Jewish?
Oh, is he Jewish?
Yeah. Matt's actually Jewish, so
So so maybe Trey Parker. I thought one of them was atheist and maybe the other one's Jewish. And it may be one of those things where if it's your own people group, you can make fun of them all day. So, I don't know. That stuff doesn't bother me at all, for sure. I was wondering though, with I mean, I guess in these they didn't really take any stabs at being diabetic, but they
I
have.
didn't catch it if they did.
They do that in other seasons with that character, Scott Malkinson. I'm diabetic.
Oh.
Like he makes such and I wonder if they're trying to poke fun at him making such a big deal about him being diabetic, because that's basically how he would introduce himself. I'm Scott Malkinson and I'm diabetic.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Right. That is sort of his character from previous
I'm going to start
previous
doing
seasons. So yeah, and I'm just wondering what is it that they're poking fun of? And so Renee watches South Park too.
it. Well,
She's type 1 diabetic, and she finds it hilarious that they do that. You know,
It's got to be making fun of the people. You know the joke. Have you ever met a vegan? Well, I don't think so. Well, you obviously
Yeah.
haven't, because they'll tell you within 10 seconds.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's
bet
got
that's
to
it.
be a play on that.
It-
and there are
it's like they're-
diabetics like that. That
Yep, like they're-
hey,
yeah.
Billy Joe, nice to meet you. By the way, I'm a diabetic. Don't have any sugar around
Yep.
me.
Right.
Or I'm sure that's now,
It has to
I
be.
wear an insulin pump. You'll hear it beep at some point.
Right.
It's always funny when I'm in a crowd and the insulin pump beeps and somebody will look at you and I'll be like, it's a bomb. Don't worry about
Like,
it. It's
Your condition's not really your personality, so that's
Right.
kind of yeah.
Right.
yeah,
I
but
think
I can see that with her. I can see that being funny. I just didn't know that was the joke.
That was the joke. And I think it's all about identity. It's
Mhm.
how you identify. Everybody identifies differently. Most people I think now identifies by politics. That's their identity, which it shouldn't be, but that's how some of us, we identify with our religion. So that's how our identity's formed. So I think it's just a play on saying that diabetics basically have a religion of being a diabetic,
Right.
which
And
is
some of
kind
them
of funny.
do.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll just speaking from the faith perspective. I
Mhm.
hope when people think of me, they think, "Oh, he really is a Christian." Not that he says he is,
Right.
but that he is.
Right.
And again, if people think of me as a diabetic, I'm fine with that too. But I didn't. Because I am. I don't
Right.
advertise it.
That
My
should be
license
your
plate doesn't
opening
say
line.
Type 1D. Oh, that would not be a good license plate.
Yeah. So
But the-
Oh,
but, like no, everything's fair game with South Park. I mean,
Oh,
I feel
absolutely.
like so like they made fun of. I mean, not like they kind of made fun of cancer with like Randy when he tried to get like marijuana back when it was illegal. So he would like try to put his sack in the microwave and try to get cancer in the balls.
yeah.
Oh,
They do some extreme stuff. And the crazy thing is I watched this as a young teenager. Like
it came out when I was right out of high school,
Yeah. So
and
I
I'm
was
old.
late elementary school probably. So 12, 13, 14 is when I started watching this. And it's just because my parents didn't know what this was. It's just a cartoon to them. Cartoons is for kids. Well, this was not for kids. I shouldn't have been watching it. But
Maybe you shouldn't now. I haven't decided yet.
right. But
stay there.
it definitely molded my sense of humor. I've got somewhat of I don't have a potty mouth, but I have a potty sense of humor. I guess you could say.
It's definitely like I was reading something online about how South Park has sort of become. There's like this sort of a conservative group of they're South Park fans because they hate censorship, but they're part of that sort of libertarian conservative crowd.
Mhm.
And like the joke was they're the South Park conservatives or something like that. It was, I mean, I can't remember what article that was, but I mean that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, South Park should have a good following. I mean, it does. It's clearly, it's done well for itself, but it should have a mix of any political flavor of audience because they do. They make fun of PC just as much as they make fun of anti-vaxxers, right?
Right.
And that's two different crowds.
Oh
So-
yeah, it definitely is.
That's two different crowds. So they should be attracting a lot of people.
And what's great about these like 2 episodes, like especially with I guess it's considered a season, it's very focused. Like
Fair. Yep.
yeah, like it's very like I guess where they got like the hour-long episodes, they can kind of do more than try to like
It's
'cause
movie
20 minutes can
quality
be yeah.
storyline, and I like that. I liked when they did a entire season of one basically big storyline.
Mhm.
I like that too. Better than the one-offs. This episode doesn't mean really anything other than just funny jokes.
I mean, some of the one-offs are pretty good, but then I think when they can expand the story, I think that's where a lot of their talent shines as far as storytelling goes. And like the superhero stuff is some of my favorite episodes. Like,
Absolutely.
Oh, that'd be on HBO, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I may
Yeah,
look that up.
look it up. The list of what was it? Coon and Friends.
Coon and Friends. Yeah.
Just look up the list of Coon and Friends episodes. Cartman was the Coon. That was his name, and
Something
they're
tells me
great.
that's going to be really offensive or really funny or both.
I don't know
It's
if
really,
it really was
funny.
meant-
No, I don't think it was meant to be offensive. Even
No,
though
I think
the
it was
name
just
could be.
literally a
but
raccoon.
It's a
Oh,
raccoon.
oh,
It really is
okay.
a raccoon. Yeah.
I'm
Um,
very disappointed then.
So speaking of Cartman, we'll be hard pressed not to talk about Cartman and Kyle's relationship in this show, in these two.
That is
It-
to
it's a
me
big
my favorite.
It's a big story, and so the I guess the running plot line here, Nate, from previous seasons is that Kyle and Cartman are basically enemies. You know,
I remember that when I've watched from time to time.
yeah, they hate each other. Cartman's always making fun of him because he's a Jew and all this stuff. And then you fast forward to the future, and then Cartman is an Orthodox Jewish rabbi,
Right.
and Kyle believes that he's just doing that to make fun of Kyle still. That he's just doing it, but he has an entire family. You know, he has a wife and what, 3 kids? I think
3 kids, and the wife's
Yeah,
named
because one's the
Yentl, and the
baby.
kids are named like
Yes.
Makar. Like, you know, it's just like all Jewish typical names, and like towards like I think was like the first, like when they start like spending the night over, and then Kyle kicks them out, and then
Yep.
the little one's like, he's kicking us out because we're Jewish or something like that.
Yeah, Uncle Kyle.
They don't know him. He's Uncle Kyle.
Uncle
That's what I
Kyle.
thought was funny.
Yeah, that was amazing to me. Like that dynamic, and that's part of what I like about South Park in general is those 2 characters and the hate they have for each other. Really, it's funny though that they can remain friends and still have that feud, that constant feud going on. I did debate throughout at least the first episode if Kyle was right about Cartman, and then I think ultimately he was wrong. That was Cartman's life, and you know he did become Jewish. He did become a rabbi. He did have a Jewish family, and he was happy.
Yeah.
You know that seemed to be the case. And I also found it interesting that you know Cartman started the rebellion against time traveling to save his family. And
Right.
I'm thinking, you know what? I don't know that Cartman's in the wrong here. Like that's not
that goes
a
back
bad
to
thing to do.
Well, that kind of goes back to the individualism I was talking about earlier. Like, he's doing it strictly for him, but like Kyle's doing it for the better of everybody else.
Of everybody else. That's right. That's right. It's basically Kyle and Stan. You know, that group is wanting to go back in time to. First, they thought to fix COVID, but then they realized it wasn't. It was never about fixing COVID. It was about fixing their friendship.
Mhm.
Right.
Which I thought was an interesting meta narrative of this entire thing. It was never about fixing COVID. It was always about the relationship the 4 boys had and getting back to that. Kenny longed for that friendship again.
Yeah.
And so he invented time travel just to go back and fix it. And I thought that was amazing. Like, Kenny may be the best character, even though we didn't get anything other than dead Kenny. But he may be the most noble in this entire thing, right?
He always is. Like, if you go back and watch the superhero episodes, like when he
Mysterion.
Mysterion, like he did something for his little sister. Like, they didn't have a whole lot of money, but he had enough money to buy her that toy that she wanted.
That's true.
And
that's true.
Like, there's always sort of a heart in some of the South Park episodes. And I think this one had it because, like, I think even though Cartman's intentions was good, Kyle's intention was to save everyone, even though like there is like this conflict with like, okay, here's Cartman's. He's always been like a narcissist, almost like a sociopath at times, but like
almost.
But now he's like, oh, I'm doing this for my family.
Right.
But if you think about all the things he's done, you know, it's like, can you really believe him? But because you kind of understand Kyle's point of view.
Yeah, I understand, but the problem is Kyle wasn't forgiving, and he was constantly stuck in the past. So if he had got past those things, then in the future, him and Cartman would have had a much better relationship. But he couldn't get past those things. He was absolutely stuck and thinking that Cartman was out to get him. And then the more they interacted and the more that Kyle lashed out, then Cartman started falling back into old habits. You know, and really targeting Kyle and doing those things. But like I said, I think that Cartman at least had a noble reason to want to not to stop this time travel. But then he corrupted it. This is getting back into old Cartman. He corrupted it by then wanting to use time travel himself to go back and kill Kyle. Which and it was the whole would you kill Hitler, baby Hitler, or something like that if you
Right.
could, if you have time travel. And that was a question I was going to pose to everybody, and maybe Nate, put your pastor hat on here. If time travel was a thing, is there a moral issue to it from a Christian standpoint? Should we pause and kind of reject it? Like, because are we now dabbling in the godly realm?
Well, I would certainly argue the morality of if you knew what was going to happen, would it change what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example from my personal life without getting too down the rabbit hole. If I knew in 2010 when I got married that it was going to end in divorce in 2019, would I have done it?
Mm.
Was it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, I think that's a legitimate question.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be who I am today if I didn't have the good times, the bad times, the hard times, the breakup, the pain?
Mm-hmm.
And now listen, it's a little different when you're talking about somebody who's responsible for mass genocide.
Yep.
But even then, would the people affected the most by Hitler be better off no, they'd be better off alive. But what would be different would be the only thing I'd have a hard time playing God.
Right.
Would somebody have also stepped into the same role as Hitler?
Would there have been a worse Hitler?
I mean, World War II was going to happen eventually anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a history or a what if podcast, but there was going to be another world war because the nations were determined that they could win.
Mm-hmm.
So there had to be one, there had to be an atomic bomb. There had to be a total annihilation of Germany or whatever nation it would have been, and Japan by the atomic bomb.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know if you went back, if you kill Hitler, is the next guy in line is Goethals or Himmler the next one up, and are they worse?
Yeah, that is the thing. And I mean, fortunately, time travel is not real, and I don't foresee that that's ever going to be a thing.
We'd know if it was.
We'd know if it was.
Somebody would have come back.
That's right.
I mean, I really believe that. If time travel was real, they'd appear in Times Square in the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd make an announcement and they'd disappear.
If we had that power, I just don't think you should mess with time. I mean,
right. It seems like a dangerous thing. But I
has
do
Back
wonder
to the Future or Avengers Endgame taught us nothing. That's not today's podcast.
That's a different season. But I will say that I feel like time travel could be a thing even now if parallel universes is a thing. Because let's say it's sort of, and I think this may have been the Avengers one, where when you go back in time, you're not necessarily going back to the exact one you came from, the branch. You're going back to a different branch. So we would never know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only counterpoint that I would put.
Time's not singular. And I think, when I was watching, of course, I'm going back to a different topic here with Dragon Ball Z, like the Trunks saga and the Cell saga had a lot to do with time travel. But like he went back, changed a different time course, but when the character went back to his time frame, nothing's changed. Like everything was, nothing, the characters are still dead, the world's still under chaos. It's like you just changed another timeline, but you didn't change yours. But somehow Avengers done something, I don't know. But
well, and the other thing, talking about Cartman and Kyle in the future, and Cartman was wanting to do it to protect his family. Kyle's wanting to do it to protect everybody. And this will be foreign to you guys. It's the old Star Trek 2 and 3 conundrum. In Star Trek 2, 1982, Spock sacrifices himself to save the Enterprise because the good of the many outweighs the good of the one or the few.
Yeah, I remember the quote. Yep.
Star Trek 3, the Enterprise risks itself to go and rescue Spock as he's reborn on that planet. And they think that the good of the one or the few outweighs the good of the many. And that's that whole art. That's what I thought of watching South Park. That's the argument.
Mm-hmm.
I see. That's what I thought was an obvious illusion, and it clearly was not. I mean, it was for me, but it's that argument. What's the greater good, the many or the few?
And I guess once again to tie this into the more religious aspect, from our Christian belief, we believe that and this is biblical teaching here, that we should be willing to go out for the one. You leave the many to go after the lost sheep, the lost one.
Mhm.
And that is a very what's the word I'm thinking here? There's a word, like a philosophy word, where you're doing the good for the majority,
Mhm.
and I can't think of the word right off, but it seems to be anti that you're not necessarily doing the good of the majority. You're doing the good for one specific. It's a relational thing. It's a relational philosophy. That one person that's lost, that is lost, you go out, and you may have to leave everybody behind to go out and do this. And
Well, there's
go
no
ahead.
logic in it.
Right.
There's no logic in leaving the 99 to find the one
Mhm.
until you're the one.
Yep.
When you're
Exactly.
the one that the shepherd has dropped everything and sacrificed everything to go find, then it'll change. Now listen, I'm getting ready to pass the plate and have the altar call over here.
Right.
But that's absolutely what the gospel is. And again, this is not the time for that, although we're prepared at any time. But
Right. Yeah. I mean, with you and your pastor hat, it's hard not to talk about some of these things. You actually need a hat that says pastor.
Oh man.
Great.
Oh
Put it on.
man. I
Pastor
have a
hat.
top hat, that real felt top hat. That's the one I need.
Pastor
My
hat.
wrestling mask that says El Pastor.
All right, so hit on a few more points.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about they talked about this at the very end of the second episode? They said they kept talking about one precedented time, and they emphasized it multiple times. One precedented time. What were they getting at here? Were they? I was trying to figure that out. Are they saying something about the president, that
I
there
kept
should have been a better
thinking of
response from the president?
I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know what had been said previously, so I wasn't sure where they were going. It
Yeah.
sounded to me like I'm not exactly what you would call a Donald Trump fan. What's the opposite of that? Because that's what I would be. But I kind of thought it was a shot at him. Although I will say this, I don't really think any one person was to blame for the pandemic. I think it was coming. I think we weren't prepared, and that's neither here nor there.
Right.
I mean, I
But
think it was referring to that time period, and
Right.
to
It
me, I
was.
kept thinking of like when their friendship was starting to fall apart. That's kind of
Oh,
The
okay.
one
Yeah.
president. So he was actually talking about the friendship of the four, the one president.
because if you go back to the season that came on a couple, I can't remember what season it was, but like because they flash back to when they were trying to get COVID shots for the teachers.
yes,
And they're on the bridge and they were talking about
Mm-hmm.
like, let's just kind of admit we kind of been sick of hanging out with each other. So I kept thinking of that episode.
that was
Oh.
that was the vaccine episode that I mentioned, Nate, from season 24. And one thing about that is a direct tie-in to post-COVID is that in that episode, Kyle sneaks and gives his family the COVID vaccine without telling the friends. So he's
Oh.
the selfish one in that one.
Mhm.
Okay.
He's
okay.
taking care of his family first, and
And it
I
goes
think
back
that was
to like the
direct
selfishness.
tie-in, the
Yeah.
selfishness, right?
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Under the
Because like
selfishness?
everybody will act like they're for the good of everybody else, but if it came down
What-
to like
it's
balls
survival
to
of the fittest.
wall, yeah.
Right.
Listen,
And
I'm
again,
not so sure if it came down to it. I'll be honest with you. If it
I
was
don't
a
know that
choice between me and most other people I know, I might pick me every time. And I'm not saying that's right or moral.
right. And again, like this goes back to, I think that is our nature, our instinct to be survivalists, to be individualists, but once, we have belief systems and faith to try to get us out of those things.
Right. Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's-
Thank goodness we
right.
do.
Yeah.
But I mean, left to our own devices, we are selfish and
Mhm.
wrapped up in ourselves. And again, I could preach. I've preached twice today. I can go a third time.
Oh, and that's always been a theme for this type of show. Like,
Yep.
we will like, because I think it may have been one of the last few episodes of this season where Officer Bob Brady, they fired him for shooting a kid, but then
Mhm.
like when it became beneficial to their interest, they
Yep.
wanted Bob Brady involved.
Yep.
So it's like, that's always been a theme with South Park.
That's true. All right. I guess any final thoughts? So, Nate, it sounds like you didn't become a fan, although you are willing to watch more episodes. So maybe you did become a fan.
Oh, I mean, I'm not one of those people that like if I'm watching Comedy Central, when would I watch Comedy Central? I mean, but like, let's say I'm watching an old episode of The Office on Comedy Central and South Park comes on. I'm not like, I got to find the remote. I hate this.
Turn this garbage off.
Yeah, I'm not like that. I'm just not a fan. But hot take, I'm also not a fan of one of the most popular sitcoms ever, Seinfeld.
Yeah, I feel you.
So,
I'm not a huge fan either.
I don't seek that out. I mean, so it's not for me. South Park is not.
Like, I get why it's funny, but I'm just like,
Yeah.
It's just like, I get it. Like, what the guy who does Seinfeld, he has another show out that people just love. I'm just like, not my thing. Sorry.
He's not that funny.
Yeah.
But that's me. I'm not like, well, you guys are terrible because you like this, and I can't be friends with you guys.
Mhm.
There are a lot of other reasons why I can't be friends with you guys. No, I'm just kidding.
And if we ever have to do like an individual South Park event or something, like there are highlights throughout, like seasons. Like,
Sure.
of course, to me, it's like, I think after season 5 was when they started really getting like their stride in with like storytelling.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I forgot. When Stan or Kyle says, I've got to have a great idea, and he goes to sit on the toilet. And you hear the plop. And he gets up and he turns around, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be another Mr. Hankey. And
Nope.
it's nothing.
Nope.
Yep.
And he just flushes the toilet and walks away. I laughed until I hurt. And I don't know why I thought that was so funny.
I thought it was funny because I think it was telling or revealing that the imagination of adults is basically nothing.
Mm-hmm.
As kids, you can imagine.
Yes, that's why it was funny.
Yeah, you can imagine that Mr. Hankey's real, but as an adult, nope. There's no
Well, if you
such
think
thing.
about it, before he even like was, he took a dump, he was praying. He's like, I haven't prayed in like
Right.
a long time. So
Right.
Right, and I
But
think
I
they
did
even had
laugh
maybe.
hard.
I thought that maybe they even had bells in the background as music, so you
I
were
can't
getting
remember.
the hints that there was going to be Mr. Hankey the Christmas Pooh, and then there was nothing.
Yes. See, okay, so we're on the same page.
Yeah, I found it funny too. So, the one thing we haven't talked about, which it was made to be more important than it actually was, and that's Tegridy Weed of the episodes. And I feel like that's probably every episode Tegridy Weed's in. It's made to be way more important than what it is.
Yeah.
But I think it's hilarious that it was in the equation, Kenny's equation for time travel, but it was just there because he wanted weed.
I kind of wonder if like, because you remember when he opened up the vase, he's like, I got a special, like I got some Tegridy left over. It's a special, but they didn't want it being empty. So I wonder if this was like an idea they had, and it just kind of like went down the crapper, and they just threw it in with this COVID special stuff.
I don't know, maybe, but it's hilarious that Randy thinks that the answer, and it's also funny that the answer basically did turn out to be Tegridy Weed. Like he gave Tegridy Weed to everybody in South Park in the past, in the present, like after everything was fixed. Then he has this new.
Sorry about the dogs barking.
Oh,
It's no problem. My dog barks all the time. But he gives future. They bring the Tegridy Weed back from the future, give it to Randy, and then Randy makes the new COVID special or whatever he calls it, and gives it to everybody. He just gives it away, and that chills everybody out. Everybody starts apologizing to each other and getting along, and saying, basically the anti-vaxxers and then the people who were pushing regulation are like apologizing to each other and shaking hands and stuff. And it seemed to have a very pro marijuana ending.
well, I mean, Matt and Trey are very pro marijuana, and
absolutely.
But I think this is one of those like weird moments where they kind of actually do have sort of an answer, kind of, because most of the time they always have like, it's kind of an answer, but we don't know. But like pretty much everybody can have a common ground and can just say, hey, we may have just overreacted a little bit and just get along again. And I
It's
think
basically
that's
chill out and get along.
yeah, just chill out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you dive too much into like politics and stuff like that, you can really get like toxic.
I also like the arc there at the very end with Cartman, where he is willing to have faith that God will see him to his family in the future,
Yeah.
regardless of what changes. And then when the future changes, he's basically homeless and drunk. Like that was a terrible ending for him, but it was interesting that he had that arc in his character to be willing for that to happen. So that to me showed maturity in the Cartman character.
Yeah.
Cartman character is one of my favorites, by the way. Like I like antagonists usually in general, and he is the biggest antagonist usually. I would say that maybe Kyle, you could make the point that Kyle was a bigger antagonist in this one than he was. But I'm a big fan of Cartman. Just
I think
'cause
Cartman
he's
is just
hilarious.
like, he's such an immoral character, and
Yeah.
it's fun to watch it like because he's like saying things that people think he's like the character that people think about, but they don't want to say it out loud. So
Yeah.
like Trey and Matt Stone just put it all in Cartman's
He's the
character.
exaggeration of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
But like,
Right.
yeah, I think these specials have been some of the better story writing they've done.
I agree. That's why I wanted, if we were going to talk about anything South Park, I wanted it to be this because it's a single storyline and it goes to completion and it's a couple hours. And I
am
thought this
surprised
is
though,
the
like
best South Park that
Yeah.
they have to offer.
And I wonder with like this deal with Paramount, or is it? Yeah, it's Paramount. Like, because they love musicals. I just wonder will they do
If
like
they're gonna do a
another
musical.
musical South Park like the movie?
They might.
I have seen the movie from 20 however many years ago.
Yeah, it's been a very long time, but
Right.
I watched it back
Bigger,
back in the day,
longer,
too.
uncut. Is that right?
Something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Any final thoughts, Josh, Nate? I think this was
let's-
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
I
Nick.
thought it was good. I thought it was fun. Yeah.
Let's just say I don't know of a way that I can ever work a South Park clip into a sermon.
That's probably true.
If you do, let me know so I can come.
Well, you'll get. Hey, if you can get Josh into church, you should take on that task. I would say that. But yeah, I agree. Like it is very potty humor and very foul language and just over the top,
Yeah.
to where it's hard.
Yeah.
But-
And I get it. Like, it's not like for like that type of humor is not for everybody. 'Cause I get
is
it. Because
not.
like I
Yep.
said, I love kind of like deadpan humor sometimes, but then sometimes it's like it's all right, I guess.
I cannot imagine my mother sitting down to watch South Park
I don't
or
think-
other things that I watch and enjoy. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, this was a good start to our list. So do you have the list handy, Nate, that we had from
Maybe.
the last episode? We need to come up with what we're talking about next.
I
Makes
do
the more
have
organized one.
some lists. I didn't know I needed it today. We also had a lot of Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh yeah.
Whatever.
It is available for digital download and rent now.
It is. It is. We also had Lord of the Rings, movie scores, 80s horror that were pretty popular.
Which one would you talk about? Because I feel like with South Park, it kind of fell on both me and Justin on
Yeah,
this one.
yeah. Why don't you pick the next one, Nate?
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't expecting to do that.
80s
today.
horror. That
No
sounds
pressure.
good.
I'd be fine with that. Now, listen, if it's just up to me, I say we do movie scores,
Oh yeah.
favorites, and notable.
Okay.
But then you run into
We
the
can do that.
problem. We're going to talk about stuff that people aren't going to be able to hear.
I
We
mean,
can't play samples.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
think that's
point.
fine legally because we don't have to get sued.
Well,
Right.
How entertaining is it though?
True, I guess.
That's a good point.
mean,
I
I don't-
honestly didn't, when I brought it up, I
I
didn't
don't
think about
mind to
that.
do my own rendition of some of these songs. Nobody will watch that podcast.
I mean, we would probably have to do a lot of research into the background of the composer and state facts and stuff to just
Mhm.
get a lot of material in here because we can't really play the sound. Now we can
You
hum
have
it.
to.
I mean, we could do images, like just show images on the screen, maybe like I guess we'll figure it out. But like, I'm good with either way, Nate. Whatever I feel like you choose on this one.
I mean, I am a diehard Lord of the Rings guy. I mean, Spider-Man's fine too. I mean, I'm pretty chill. I have to be assertive in my job, so I'm not going to be that guy on the podcast today. Next time. But if we ever do Lord of the Rings, I do have a One Ring T-shirt I'm wearing. I'm just saying.
Very nice. So with Lord of the Rings, because it's so many movies, I almost feel like you would have to do it within its own season or something.
We
right?
may have
If
to
you-
like make
if
that.
we
a,
did
You could.
it, like do the Hobbit movies and the Lord of the Ring movies, and it be its own season.
Oh,
let's
were
just
there
stick
Hobbit
with the
movies
Lord of the
made?
Rings. Let's ignore the Hobbit
There
movies.
were 3 Hobbit movies.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
ignore
they're not
those.
very good, so I don't count them. Like the 4th Indiana Jones movie that doesn't exist.
Oh,
I
that's trash.
actually liked the Hobbit movies, not as
I
much. as Lord
have
of the
them
Rings,
because I'm a
but I liked them.
completionist.
Right.
But they're not. Those next to Lord of the Rings are like going from cinema verite to the 50-cent theater.
I think with the Hobbit, they just stretch it out way too much. I think it easily could have been a movie or maybe 2 movies. I could do.
You
all
can
of
read
them.
The Hobbit in 2 hours.
Yeah,
It's not worth 10 hours of film, maybe 4 hours. But
and we can also like do the Lord of the Rings like a different time because it like maybe because it's like I got the director's cut edition, so it's like
yeah,
3
baby.
So
Yeah,
3 some
baby.
hours. That's like almost 10 hours of film. So I mean,
So
that's a
every
lot.
second.
Not
It's
really
worth
So
every
but-
Nate,
second.
you have mentioned a few times now on the podcast Star Trek. Would you like to talk about a Star Trek movie?
Oh, a movie. I do love me some Star Trek. I mean, I always say I'm a bigger Star Wars fan
Mhm.
because I love the fantasy of Star Wars and the escapism. It's not based in
Should-
reality at all. But Star
we watch
Trek
the
is true
2
science fiction.
Should we watch the 2 movies that you mentioned tonight as our next?
Oh, well, we can. I mean, I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. I'm old. I'm
This will
43.
be
You guys
interesting.
are young
I
men.
don't know jack about Star
Well,
Trek, so
I only know from the newer shows and newer movies, so I don't have any experience right now with the old movies. But if we wanted to say that's what's next on the list, now that may have not been on our original list, but that's an option. We did mention it tonight, so it would
Yeah,
be
well, the
kinda-
last time I checked my watch, it still said America. We can do what we want to do.
I thought this was America.
That's right.
That
I
is a
just
Randy
quoted
Marsh quote.
Tim Allen on Last Man Standing. So
All right, so I mean, is that the conclusion? Do we want?
yeah, we'll just
Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, and Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Oh,
Okay.
baby, I'm all over it.
Okay.
Am I going to have to
think
leave
that
the discussion?
probably it's going to be all
Okay.
Nate next time.
Oh, then welcome to the Nate Show.
The Nate Show. So yeah, this would be great. I feel like this could be good, and me and
I
Josh is going to have to watch and take notes. Hopefully, those are streaming somewhere.
They were on Netflix. I'm sure they're on Paramount or Amazon Prime.
Right.
okay.
Amazon
that
Prime
myself.
had some of the Star Trek movies. I mean, I have them on DVD
Mhm.
if anybody wants them, but you'd have to come and get them or I'd meet you
Right.
somewhere.
I'm sure it's on streaming, so we'll get that figured out. But that's what we'll do. The Star Trek 2
that's
and
cool.
3. There we
Okay.
go. And we just pulled that one
That's-
out
that's-
of
that's
what
very
you were talking
organic.
about before. It's
Very organic.
Yes, love it. All right, well, good stuff. That'll be a wrap for tonight. So I'm going to
Yeah.
close us. I come prepared this time to close us with a quote from the post-COVID special. And some people might say this is the best quote of the 2 shows. Some people might not. Here's the quote. If you're not going to make Space Jam 2, then I'm not going to make Space Jam 2, and nobody's going to make Space Jam 2. Bye, everybody.
Wish that had happened.
See ya.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. We hope that we were able to entertain you at least for a spell. If you see value in our craziness and want to continue supporting us, please follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, and share our content with someone you may know. Also, let us know how we're doing. make suggestions for the podcast, leave us a comment, heck, send us an email. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on the Bottle of Pop Culture podcast.